Hello and welcome to a brand new series in visualbasic.net. I'll be running through a couple of tutorials of how to create the assessment task for the moron tester. Not a fantastic name, maybe the slightly challenged tester. But this is what we did earlier today. If this timer gets to 0, it will come up with this form. Forgive me, I'm working on 2 screens here, so I'm going to have to continue to drag over these forms that load on the other screen. Very quickly, we looked at that. We looked at our little Easter egg here. I'm going to hopefully try and take you through starting this project from scratch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we waited for this. I think on 5 seconds it came up, and boom, there we go, on 5, and you win. Yay. We did a number of other things here. If I restart this project again, if we actually click the correct one, again, new forms are loading in my other screen, which is quite frustrating. Pick the green one, it will go to another form which loads this one. Click red 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was easy. It got to question 5 and we did nothing there and went straight to question 6 with the Easter egg. Alright, so how do we even begin to do this? Let's start right back at the beginning. I'm actually going to move this guy over to this screen, and I am going to start a brand new project. Now this is going to be tricky. When you start a brand new project, I'm going to have our project that we've already created on one screen and the brand new project on another screen. You need to make sure when you open up Visual Studio that you do not select Visual C# or Visual F#, which I've never used before, Python, JavaScript. We're not looking at any of those, although Visual Studio is getting better and better and has more and more compatibility with real-world languages. The one that we're going to look at here in red is Visual Basic, and essentially all we're going to look at is Visual Basic Windows and Windows Form applications. So we're going to look at a very narrow view of what Visual Basic is and what Visual Studio can do, but it's going to give us a good foundation in programming. So if we click on Windows Form application, make sure this is essential here, that you save it properly. Your program might come up without this. It might only come up with name and solution name. That's fine. If it doesn't have a location about that, don't worry just yet. If it does, can you please make sure, especially here at Arden, we have a policy that you cannot run executable programs off your USB. You cannot run executable programs off Schoolbox or anything external, even off the network drives. So can you please make a folder on your desktop? Here is C users Simak desktop. Please navigate to there, click the browse button, click desktop, select folder, and then whatever you call your application here, it will create a new solution with that solution name there. So I'm just going to call this, we should probably not call it moron test. What could we call this? Slightly challenged test. You'll also notice that I don't put any spaces anywhere. Common practice when you're programming is underscore everywhere that there would be a space. Different programming languages freak out with spaces. They read things differently. So a very common practice is do not put spaces anywhere in your code, especially when naming things. Excuse me. So here with create directory for a solution, what it's going to do essentially is going to create a folder on my desktop that's going to be called slightly challenged test. In that folder will be my project files and everything I need to open this project and move this project from machine to machine. So please do not modify any of the files in there. just yet. We'll talk about that a bit later. Now if I press OK, and of course it opens up on the other screen, I'm going to drag that over. Fantastic. What do I have here? I have another project open there. So I have slightly challenged test open here. And where did I hide that? Did I put it on the desktop? Nope. It's slightly challenged test. Ah, here we go. Original moron test prototype. I'm going to open that on this other screen, which you guys can't see. Okay, so over here, a very, very quick tour around the interface. So I'm just checking the time, just making sure that we don't go over time. A very, very quick tour around the interface is that over here we have our Solution Explorer. You really don't need to touch anything there just now, but what you'll see as we start to create forms is that under here we have Form 1, and you'll make more forms, Form 2, Form 3, Form 5, whatever. You will rename your forms, but this is where you will access your forms. You'll notice that if I right click that, two very important things that we'll become very used to is View Code and View Designer. For those forms. You might not know everything that they mean right now, but I will explain that as we go along. Over here, you need this toolbox. Very, very important to have this toolbox. Probably not all Windows forms just yet, so if I just minimize, collapse that window, just leave common controls open. There will be one called a timer that we're going to access a little bit later, but most of your controls that you'll use are there. Now, before we touch anything, if you were one of those people that hasn't saved it yet to a folder because your dialog when you opened the new project didn't have that browse function, then can you please click on this guy, not this guy in green. This is very counterintuitive. Click on the red one, not the green one, because the one in red I call Epic Save, which is Save All. Now, because I've already done that, it's not going to look like very much to you guys right now, but if you haven't saved it to a folder, then when you click that Epic Save button, what it will do is pop up with a dialog window that will say save, write a solution name and select a folder where to save all your files. Please do that before you go anywhere else. That is extremely important. You have to do this. Or if yours is lucky enough to pop up at the beginning, then do it at the beginning, because if you don't do that, you keep working and then later you freak out. You might press this guy. It can corrupt certain things and do different things that we don't want it to do. Trust me, just Epic Save first. That's the go. Okay, so now let's drag our form out, and you'll notice a couple things. This is our GUI here, a graphical user interface. You'll notice common controls: minimize, maximize, close. We could even run that now, and if I press start to compile that, it will run, and of course it runs on the other screen. And there we go. Windows 10 has obviously updated the controls a little bit, but you still have minimize, maximize, close. You have a window. It's nice, clean and sharp edges now with the drop shadows. Thank you, Windows 10. But that's our program. It's not very exciting right now. So what can we do with our program? Let me just flick back to Form 1 over here. Okay, pick the red one. So if I come over here to my Form 1 and I grab a label, pick the red one. This is essentially what we're going to try and do. Pick the red one. We're going to forget the 5 in the corner for now. We're going to forget the little Easter egg up here for now. But we need a couple of elements. Now, when you're designing your GUI, have a look at this. We're going to use a label. We're going to use 3. I'm going to try and choose a color that's not there. We're going to choose 3 other objects. These are called picture boxes, and give them a background color of red, green, and blue. So in any object that you drag on, a object always has behaviors and attributes that are linked together with that object. You don't need to understand all of what that means right now, but understand that any object has things built in together with them. You might even get scared and double click that. Don't do that just yet. If you do, I'll show you how to get out of it. But for now, select that label by clicking on it once, and you'll notice that over here in the properties window, label, system, windows, form, label. So over here we can scroll all the way up, and a very, very, very important attribute to change. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Every object has attributes and behaviors. So when I select this guy, which is called form 1, this is my form. You'll notice that the properties change over here. Then you'll notice when I click on label 1, the properties change again. That's because we are now accessing the attributes or properties for that particular object. So with label 1, I can come here and change the name. The name is extremely important, and for everything that you make, every new object and every new instance of an object that you make, you will change the name. The name is how you access or how you reference that object later in your code. It gives you a default of label 1. We don't want to keep the default. The Simak naming convention is 3 letters to describe what the object is as a standard object, underscore a description. What I mean by that is this label is going to be our, just our standard text or question. Pick the red one, it's going to say. So I'm going to call this LBL for label. All my labels, I start with LBL underscore question. And you'll notice that here, this is how we choose it. Sorry, I forgot one thing, is my camel case in there, which is not really camel case because I have an underscore, but that's fine. LBL underscore question. You don't have to write it like that. You can call that anything. Don't put a space in the name. Remember, spaces are bad. That's why I used an underscore. You can call that Jimmy. The only problem is later on when you're reading thousands of lines of code, you forget what Jimmy is. And then especially if you get lazy and call it Jimmy 1, Jimmy 2, Jimmy 3, Jimmy 4, you're going to forget what that is. So LBL question. The other attribute that we want to change for our label is the text. Right down the bottom here, text, label. So let's quickly do that. And pick the red, I won't capitalize that, red one. I don't think it needs a question mark. It's probably not even a question. Well done. Pick the red one. It's more of a command. So now if I come up here to font, we'll see a very nice little familiar window, and we like familiarity when everything is so crazy and new. We like familiarity. Microsoft Sans Serif 8.25 point in size. If I click this little dude here, hey, here we go. I recognize this word. Let's use our old friend impact. Impact. Bold. No, not bold. Just regular. Let's go to 72. Boom. Yep. And that's probably a bit too big. Oh, hello, phone. Let me just pause that for now. Pick the red one. Okay, 36. So anyways, here we are. Let me quick move a bit faster here. For color, this is for our font color. I can change this here. Get whatever we want here. Dark orange. That doesn't look very dark to me. But you have all these creative names here. Midnight blue. Okay, pick the red one. And there we go. We've changed the font. We've changed the font color with for color. We've changed the name attribute up here. Oh, no, we haven't. We changed the name attribute up here to LBL question, which is not really a question, but that's okay. We can call it whatever we want. And text, pick the red one. The text property is if an object has a text property, the text property is, or attribute is, what is currently visible. And that will be very important later once we're getting like a text box and we're getting a user input or something like that. But what is currently visible? Pick the red one. Fantastic. Let's move a bit quicker. So now I'm going to grab a picture box, and I like picture box. I drag it here. I am going to make one picture box and call it PB1. Now this is bad naming convention. Usually PB underscore something good, but we're moving quickly now. So PB1, I'm going to change the background color, which is over here in back color. I'm going to change the background color to something like dark red. Fire brick. Nice. Fire brick. That's all I need. I just need the name and the color, and then I'm going to duplicate that 3 times by holding Control on the keyboard, dragging it across, and you get these nice little guidelines. Boom. Boom. Maybe grab all 3 with Shift. Oh, that is the opposite of what I want to do. Just hold Shift and drag it. Okay, pick the red one. It's not really centered, but again, who cares? Well, I care, but not right now. Okay, we need to change the color of these guys. All right, fire brick. We don't want you to be fire brick. We want you to be forest green, and we want you to be navy. Also, please make sure that the names for these are correct, even though you copied it over. You click on this guy, he's back to picture box 1. So I don't want that. I want PB2. You know what? Let's call it something good. PB underscore green. I just can't do it. I'm sorry. PB underscore red. Red, not reg. And PB underscore blue. Okay. Pick the red one. We're going a bit slow because we're just introducing everything, but here we go. We're going to get into some code. But first of all, we need to tell it where to go. Once we've picked the red one, we want something to happen. Usually we're going to create another form, but for today, what we're going to do is when I pick the red one, this text is now going to go red. Wow, that's going to be cool. So let's get into some code. To get into a code, you need to figure out which object is going to be interacted with, and when that object is interacted with, what code do you need on that object. So the first part of programming is abstraction, is taking this complex problem and stripping it down into its component parts. So we have this issue, this really complex problem of how do we tell the computer which one is the red one. The computer won't know which one is the red one, but we can program it to know which one is the red one. So pick the red one. When we double click on this box, it takes us to some code. Yay. And now you can see you've got 2 tabs up here. Form1.vb, design, which is your design view for your GUI. And then up here, you have form1.vb and you have your code for that whole form. Okay. Sorry, I just did something by default that I always do. But let me explain what I just did. Was I went to the first line here and just gave myself some room up here because I'm going to need some stuff there maybe later to declare some variables or something. Now, similarly to something else like HTML or something like that, where you have opening and closing tags, it's nothing like HTML, but I guess there's one concept that you can translate from HTML, is that you need these opening and closing pairs. For example, public class form1 links with end class here. You cannot just delete end class and expect that to work. An error will pop up. Same with this, private sub, end sub. You always need these things linked together. If you delete one, the whole program will crash and it won't execute those lines. So it just won't even compile properly, actually, from the beginning. So please make sure that you have those pairs together. That being said, this little section of code here is called a subroutine, a subprogram, a method, whatever you want to call it. For now, let's call it a subprogram. Let's just call it a sub. Private sub is only run when, check this out, object underscore behavior is activated. Okay, so pb_red being our object, click being the behavior that is linked with that object. So it will only run this section of code here, and the stuff in between here, I'm going to do an in-between color, yellow. It will only run the stuff in yellow when pb_red, the object, is clicked. Now again, the computer doesn't know what pb_red is. We've called it that. It only knows pb_red because we've called a box pb_red and we just happen to make it red. By accident, we could call it pb_red and make the box blue. So you have to be careful how you name things. Okay, so pb_red click, and I'm going to go right here and pb_red click. Let's quickly do this. What do we want to do? We want to change the label text to red. Fantastic. So what we want to do here is we want the name of the object that we want to modify dot attribute. So what is the name of this? The name of this label is LBL question. The attribute that we want to modify is the text attribute, because the text attribute is what is currently visible. Sorry, I totally screwed that up. The text attribute would be if we wanted to change the actual text. You know what? Seeing as I said that, we may as well go down that road. Let's change the text and let's change the font color. Let's just go crazy here. Do two things at once. So what I should have said was the attributes we want to change is the name and the for color, or the color attribute, and then the text. So let's just try the color first. Okay, so first thing we want to do is LBL question. Beautiful. This little dialog box pops up and tries to find all these other things that you might be talking about. LBL question dot for color. Thank you, VB, for fixing me. Space equals, and here we go. Space equals color dot and choose one. What did we say we're going to do? We're going to change it to red. So I'm going to start. There we go, red. Okay. So check this out. When I click, let's not make that blue. Let's make that purple. When I click the red object, it will run this code. Right now, it has one line of code, which is LBL question dot for color equals color dot red. What does this mean? This means, let's try and choose a different color. Object that I want to change dot attribute that I want to change equals value that I want, new value that I want to make it. Okay, so here is the new value for color for the LBL question object. That's a whole lot of drawing, but let's run that. I run that, I bring my thing over, and are you ready for this? Are you ready for this? The magic's about to happen. Boom. Pick the red one. Which one's the red one? Maybe it's the text, maybe it's trick question. That would be a good idea for a puzzle. Okay. The other things don't do anything. No, they don't do anything because you haven't programmed them. We haven't told it to do anything. This will continue to run. People say, oh, this doesn't do anything anymore. It is actually doing something. Every time you click on it, it's running this line. The only difference is that now that's already red, so you just don't notice it. Let's do one more thing and go crazy, and then we'll end this video here as a nice introduction. Is in the second line, LBL question dot for color equals color red. The second question, what we're going to do, the second line of code that we're going to do is we're going to change the color to red and change the text to pick the blue one. Ooh. LBL question dot text equals pick. What am I doing? Yep. Pick the blue one. Blue one. Pick the blue one. I'm going to explain that line in just a second, but let's run it and get all excited. Are you ready? Boom! The text just changed and it went red, and we're starting to confuse people here. Okay, so what did I just do then? Again, object dot attribute that I want to change equals new value. Now, the difference about this is that the dot text property is a string property. It deals with string variables or string values. And if I had another V, I would chuck that one in there too. Nice alliteration. It deals with string values. Pick the blue one, and that's why we need to put it inside. Anytime we are writing a string value, we need to put it inside inverted commas. That way, Visual Studio, as the IDE extension question, Visual Studio as the IDE knows that everything inside inverted commas is a string. Sorry, I'm lost on IDE right now. But everything inside inverted commas is a string. It will even color that inside the code, and it will give it a nice red color so we can see in our code what is a string and what is not. That's pretty cool. How do I get out of this text function? Okay. Cool. So that's how we did two things. We changed the color to red and the text of the label upon clicking one thing. Now that's kind of cool. We can extend that. Why don't you take this opportunity to pause the video, and you can try and add some code to your green button, your blue button. You can add multiple lines of code in there and do some crazy things in there. That would be fantastic. I am going to stop this right now because we've been going for too long, and I'll come back with another video.